Hello, um, Namaskar to everyone. Om Sai Ram. So today is Thursday, and I'm going to read from chapter 14, the story of Cholka's vow of sugar candy. So my obeisance to Sri Ganesh, to Sri Saraswati, and Sri Guru Maharaj, to the family deity, to Sri Sita Ramchandra, my most humble obeisance, I bow in reverence to the most venerable Guru, Sri Sainath. Only those whose innumerable meritorious deeds have come to fruition can have Sai's darshan, are not affected by the threefold afflictions, and can successfully attain by the means the spiritual end. Be kind, O listeners, meditate for a moment on your Guru, and then listen respectfully to the story by giving me your full attention. Please do not say with disdain, "Oh, don't we know you full well? Why all this futile effort?" Then forgive me, for you are comparable only to the ocean. The ocean, which, though full to the brim, will never send the river back, and contains within itself thousands of streams of water that the cloud pours. And such are you too, my listeners. I wish to bathe in your waters. Do not turn me away with scorn, for it is not good to abandon the meek and the poor. Be it the pure waters of the Ganges or the turbid flow of this village streamlet, they both find a place equally in the vast expanse of the ocean without causing any turbulence on at their confluence. Remember, I'm reading from Sri Sai Satcharitra. I forgot to say that, but anyways, going on. Hence, O my listeners, your eager interest in listening to the stories of saints will automatically be satisfied if you take kindly to my effort. When this nectar sweet story is heard respectfully and with faith and forbearance, the listeners will only experience a loving devotion and will find fulfillment. Devotees will attain effortlessly the most excellent thing, that is God. The listeners will experience devotion as well as deliverance. The simple, faithful souls will enjoy peace and happiness, and will all will find their ultimate refuge with the capital U and capital R for refuge. As they listen to the stories that came from the Guru's mouth, the fear of worldly life will be removed, and the listener's heart will be gladdened when they experience oneness with their true self. In this chapter, there will be a narration of how the loving devotees pray to Sai and how Sai favors them with his darshan. Listen to it carefully. A cat may have come out, having just suckled her little ones, but even if she goes back at that instant, the kittens will start running all over her to suckle at her teats lovingly once again. The mother growls wearily, and for a moment the kittens appear subdued, but it is enough for them to see her relax, and there they begin again, going round and round in circles to suck at her teeth. But as they suck, devouring the milk in large gulps so lovingly, the milk begins to trickle from the mother's teeth, and forgetting her earlier growl and weariness, the mother too stretches herself affectionately on the ground. All the weariness is gone, instead, love surges up in her breast as she embraces her young ones, holding them again tightly with her 4 feet, and licks them instinctively and again and again. It is indeed unique, this celebration of a mother's love. The deeper the sharp nails of the kitten are dug and bruised, her teeth, they the faster flows the love through many streams of milk that gush out. Just as the deep love and devotion of the little ones produce more and more milk in the mother's teats, so also will your single minded love and attachment to Sai's sweet stir Sai's heart to deep compassion. Once the people of Thane had organized near Kaupineshwar Mandir a program of Hari Bhakti Parayam, Das Ganu's Kirtan, which was a pleasure to hear. When persuaded by prominent citizens, Das Ganu used to agree graciously to perform Kirtan without expecting a pice, without undue obstinacy. Not a pice was expected to be paid for the Kirtan. Bare bodied, except for the plain dhoti around the waist, and without a pagdi on his head, the turban, he used to perform. Yet the large crowds that gathered were difficult to control. Incidentally, the story behind such unusual dress is sure to amuse when heard carefully. Listen to it at ease and see Baba's amazing ways for yourself. Remember, in those days, they didn't have TV. This was way back in early 1900s. So, yeah, this was entertainment. Plus, they come and learned about knowledge. So, once Das Ganu able was to perform kirtan at Shirdi, and came out donning a angarika, that is a long frock like garment for men, and a uparna, that is a small piece of cloth that they put on the shoulder, and a turban on his head. Quite pleased with himself, went to make obeisance to Baba, as was the custom. When Baba was heard remarking, "Bravo, you are indeed decked out like a bridegroom, but so adorned. Where do you proceed?" asked Baba. Das Ganu then replied that he was going to perform kirtan. Baba further said, "Why this angarika? Why this, frock? I mean, it's like a shirt basically. And why this uparna and the turban? What for all is this effort? These things are not for us. Take them off before me right now. Why carry this burden on your body?" Obeying Baba's command, immediately he took them off, placed them at Baba's feet, and from then onwards to this day, while performing Kirtan, Das Ganu is always seen with a bare, healthy looking body, chiplis in hand. I mean, it's like you have to put it against one in your thumb and in your fingers, and you hit it so that you can get the sound. So, and in hand, and a garland round the neck. That's all he was like. Although the style is unconventional, it is solid, pure. It is a solid, pure foundation. It is a style of Narad Muni, who is most learned amongst the learned. This tradition originated from Narad. It is from here that the long line of Haridas Kirtankaris has started. They are not burdened with the outward trapping of dress. Their sights are set on the inner purity of heart, because they are singing, telling the stories of the God, like Lord Vishnu, Rama. I mean, Rama and Krishna, they're all his avatars, but yeah, anyone they want to, they sing out, yeah, and they sing for hours together. Too familiar is the figure of Narad, with only the lower part of the body covered, and the hands playing on the veena and the chiplis, and on the lips a loud proclamations of Hari Nam constantly. By the grace of Sai Samartha, Das Ganu himself composed kathas of saints, narrated them in this kirtan, which he performed free of charge. Through this he became renowned. thus generated great enthusiasm for Sai devotion among the people, fostering love and devotion for Sai, the ocean of self rejoicing. No less a contribution has been made by Chandorkar, the most eminent amongst the Sai devotees, for it is he who is really responsible for spreading Sai's worship. It was solely due to Chandorkar that Das Ganu first came here to Mumbai and started performing bhajans and kirtans of Sai in various places. Maharaj was well known in Pune, Solapur, Nagar districts, but amongst the people of Konkan, it was these who spread Sai devotion. Thus, amongst the people of Mumbai Presidency, it was called Bombay that time. This was during the British era. Sai worship started by the efforts of these two persons. The all merciful Sai Maharaj appeared in Mumbai through these two people. So he didn't appear physically. These two, by presenting their kirtan, singing about Sai, they showed a face of Sai. That's what it means. In Sri Kaupineshwar Mandir, on that day, in the midst of loud proclamations of Sai's grace in the Kirtan and of Harinam, Cholkar experienced a sudden strong urge. Many had come for the Hari Kirtan, each one appreciating it for a different reason. Some liked Bua's proficiency in the Shastras, some admired his expressive gestures and gesticulation. Admiration of some was reserved for Bua's singing. Excellent! Oh, how wonderful is Bua's singing! How totally absorbed he becomes taking Vittal name. Vittal Nam means Vittal's name. Vittal is another name for Vishnu, so Vishnu's avatar. And how he dances enraptured, narrating the katha. Some were more interested in the prelude to the main katha, which while others loved to hear the main story. Some liked to watch the imitations and mimicry that Hari Das resorted to in the course of his narration, while some others were fond of listening to parables, fables that came in the later half. Well, Bua is an erudite Sanskrit scholar or ignorant of it, whether he can unfold levels of meaning from line to line or is an adept only at explaining the philosophical statements that come in the later half of the Kirtan. It makes little difference, for the ways of the listeners remain the same. Of these types, there are many listeners. It is hard to find the class of listeners in whom faith and devotion to God or saints grow steadily as they listen. And what is indeed is the fruit of learning, where katha comes after katha is being listened to indiscriminately, while there accumulates layer upon layer of ignorance. In vain is such listening without discrimination. Can it be called soap while it cannot remove the dirt? Can it be called discriminate listening while it does not remove ignorance? Simple trusting soul that Cholkar was, love for Sai surged up in his heart as he said to himself, O compassionate Baba, please look after this meek and helpless creature. Cholkar was a probationer, poor and penniless, who was unable to shoulder the burden of providing for his family and put the entire responsibility of Baba for obtaining the means of livelihood through the government job. People keenly desiring something take a vow that if their wishes are fulfilled, they would serve to the Brahmins whatever food they desired and to their heart's content. The rich promise to feed 1,000 people or offer 100 cows if their wishes are fulfilled. But moneyless that Cholkar was, he took a vow, remembering Sai's feet in all humility. He said, Baba, mine is a poor household. My entire dependency uh, being on getting a job. But to, beca- but to become permanent in my job, this examination must be passed. With great diligence and hard work, I prepared for the examination, all my reliance being on passing, or else I will lose my job as a probationer too. If by your grace I pass this examination, I will humbly present myself at your feet and distribute sugar candy in your name. This is my most firm resolve. I mean, we all make promises to God, like to saints, and Baba was one of those. So, such was the vow he took. Later, to his great joy, his wish was fulfilled, but the fulfillment of his promise was delayed. So, to atone for it, he gave up eating sugar. He knew he would require money on the journey. Moreover, how could he go to Baba empty handed? So he kept on postponing the visit from morrow to morrow in painful waiting. It may be easier to cross Nani Ghat, the dangerous cliff of the Sayadri range, but it is far more difficult for a householder to cross the threshold of his house. You know, everyone is burdened with responsibility. So as long as the promise made at Shirdi remained unfulfilled, any dish with sugar in it remained excluded for Cholkar, who continued to drink even his tea without sugar. So, sorry. My dog wants me to pet him, so that's why I'm bending down. So, after some days had passed in this manner, time came for Cholkar to go to Shirdi. So he went there, fulfilled the vow that he had taken, that was to distribute sugar candy, and was very happy. As he took Sai's darshan, Cholkar, prostrated before him, bowing at Baba's feet, was filled with lot of satisfaction and joy. With a heart so purified, he then distributed sugar, offered coconut to Baba, and said, Today all my heart's desire have been borne fruit. Sai Darshan made him happy. His conversation with Sai gladdened his heart. Since he was Jog's guest, he naturally had to go with Jog to his house. Excuse. When Jog got up to go, his guest got up too. Baba then said to Jog, Serve him cups full of tea, well sweetened with sugar. Cholkar was astonished to hear these significant words referring to his secret. His eyes filled with tears of joy as he placed his head at Sai's feet. Like Baba knows everything, so he knew that he wasn't drinking tea with any sugar, so any sweets. Jog was filled with admiration for Baba. As for Cholkar, he felt it twice as much. He alone knew the reason for it, as in his innermost heart he recognized the sign. Baba would never touch tea in his life. Then why all of a sudden should he think of it that particular moment? It was, of course, to affirm Cholkar's fate and to impress on his heart the mark of devotion. Suddenly, Baba gave even a clearer signal than he knew, like everything, by saying, Cholkar, your promised sugar candy has reached me. So now your vow is fulfilled too, that is, of giving up sugar till he goes to Baba with the promised sugar candy. Your agitated mind when you took the vow, your atonement for the inordinate delayed is in fulfilling it. All that I have known, though you wanted to keep it a secret. See, Baba knows everything. Wherever you all may be, when you spread your hand before me in supplication, with faith and devotion, there I stand behind you day and night, as steadfast as your faith and devotion is. I may be here in my physical body, you may be far away beyond the seven seas, yet whatever you do, I know it here instantly. You may go anywhere in the world, there I go with you. My abode is in your heart, I dwell within you. I who thus abide in your heart, it is me that you should always worship. Even in the hearts of all living creatures, it is I alone who dwell. Hence, whoever you may come across in the house or outside of it, it is or on the way, they are all my manifestations. I pervade them all. An insect, an ant, creatures living in water or moving in the sky, or animals on land, a dog, a pig, I pervade them all, most truly and always. Hence, do not consider yourself as separate from me. Great is the good fortune of him who will know me not being different from himself. Trivial as these words may appear to be, they are great in significance. How great must be Baba's fondness for this Cholkar that he gave him the treasure of devotion. That what there was in his mind was thus revealed to him by Baba through direct actual experience. Oh, how skillful are the ways of the saints! Baba's words were priceless, and as they entered deep down into the devotee's heart, they became the sap of life to the orchard of devotion and love. To devotion, they are as a mast is to the ship. The cloud compassionately rains water to quench the thirst of the Chataka, but it is in the process the whole earth is cooled by the raindrops. Such is also the case here. Cholkar, poor soul, was he not a stranger, unknown, unheard of? And for that matter, even Das Ganu's Kirtan was only an instrumental cause that created a urge in Cholkar's heart to take a vow, which ultimately resulted in his receiving Baba's grace. And because of this followed the miracle, revealing the mind of the saints. Baba, who was always keen on instructing the devotees, created such occasions for it. Here Cholkar was but an instrument. As usual, it was Baba's inconceivable Leela to instruct his devotees, which never ceases to amaze us. Let us now narrate another incident that reveals Baba's dexterity, after which we shall end this chapter. It is how someone asked a question and how Baba answered it. Once, as Baba was sitting in his usual seat in the mosque, a devotee who sat in front of him heard a lizard chirp, like you know how the lizard makes a sound? Yeah. As a chirping of the lizard or its falling on any part of one's body is considered to be a bad omen of the events to come, the devotee quite casually and out of curiosity asked Baba a question. Baba, why does that lizard on the back wall keep chirping? What could be in her mind? I hope it is not anything unpropitious or unlucky. Baba said to him, the lizard is overcome with joy that her sister is coming here to meet her from Aurangabad. What, after all, is a creature like the lizard? And then to talk of her mother, father, or brother and sister. How is she involved in this worldly human relationships? We think only humans have those relationships. So the devotee thought to himself that Baba must have said something by the way of a witty reply, and he sat quietly for a moment. Then suddenly a man on horseback came from Aurangabad to take Baba's darshan. Baba was then having a bath. As a man had to travel further, the horse could not have gone on without his daily feed of grain. He set out towards the market to buy some gram. The devotee who had questioned Baba earlier about the lizard was staring in astonishment at the just arrived trader from Aurangabad. When the latter suddenly pulled out the horse's mouth bag from under his arm and shook it vigorously to clear the rubbish. As he dashed it to the ground, like to to clear out the rubbish, turning it inside out, there dropped from out of it a lizard that slid swiftly across in great trepidation and in front of their own eyes. Baba then said to his question, "Now keep a careful eye on her." To the questioner, sorry. That now keep a careful eye on her. This indeed is the sister of the lizard. Just watch this marvel. As she set out from there, the lizard made straight towards her elder sister, who was already chirping incessantly, aiming in the direction of the sound. She set out strutting and stalking. After so many days, the two sisters were meeting. They hugged and embraced and kissed each other on the mouth. It was a unique celebration of love. Circling around each other, gyrating round and round with joy, they whirled in all directions as it pleased them, vertically, horizontally, oblique, just like young sisters who meet, right? Where Aurangabad and where Shirdi? How strange the whole incident. How could this rider suddenly appear as from nowhere and that lizard should be also with him? Oh, how strange. Maybe the lizard was in Aurangabad, had entered into the horse's bag. But how did the question answer take place at the most opportune moment? Its perfect timing was a real marvel. Oh, that lizard should start chirping, prompting the devotee to ask that question, and how Baba should have explained its significance, which received confirmation immediately through its actual experience. It was such an incident, unparalleled. Humor is loved universally, and the saints make use of this incomparable device to enhance the welfare of the devotees. Just consider, had this inquisitive devotee not been there, or had no one put the question to Baba, how would Sai's greatness have been revealed? And who would have understood the meaning? Many a lizard have we all heard, so often making these sounds. But who has the bother to find out what the meaning of that sound is, or even why they chirp? The short, mysterious, inscrutable are the strings that control this great sport of this universe. Who can imagine them? They leave everyone puzzled. Yeah, I mean, that means Baba knew how to, communicate with lizards, or, I mean, he knew to communicate with the whole world because he was in them, in their hearts, right? People say quite to the contrary that if lizards are heard chirping, it's inauspicious. The evil can be averted if you repeat the name Krishna Krishna. But it is as it may. It, but it is for sure an excellent device of Baba's to confirm the faith of his devotees in himself. It's not just a miracle. He who reads this chapter with reverence or makes repeated readings of it regularly will be freed from all obstacles of Guru Raya. He who lowers his head sorry, he who lowers his head on Sai's feet with a single-minded devotion will truly find in him his one and only refuge and protection, the doer of all action, the destroyer of all evil. Make no mistake, have no doubt about this. Such indeed is the Sainath. I narrate this secret significance of my own experience only for the benefit of the devotees. In this entire world, only I am. There is nothing else other than me. And not only in this, but in all the three worlds, I and I alone exist. Where such non duality is inspired, there not a trace of fear remains. For such a one, everything is filled with the universal consciousness, which is the unconceited, egoless state. Himmat Pant surrenders to Sai absolutely, who does not part from his feet even for a moment, for that is only the way to cross the ocean of worldly life safely. Now, listen to the interesting narration that follows. In the next chapter, Sai, the greatest of all among gurus, will create an incident of great significance as to how people ask for Brahma Jnana as if it is as easy as and quickly as snapping of a thumb and a finger. A greedy man will ask Sai for Brahma Jnana, and Maharaj will give it to him out of the man's own pocket. When the listeners hear this story, they will perceive Baba's marvelous ways to show how, unless one is totally free of avarice, the attainment of Brahman is beyond a doubt impossible. But no one ever thinks as to who has a spiritual authority, how it is attainable, and to whom will be explained by Maharaj. I am but a slave of his slaves. Hope in earnest supplication that you will hear with enthusiasm this glorious sport of Sai's love. Your heart will be filled with joy. You will have the satisfaction of understanding. Hence, O listeners, give your attention. You will know the greatness of the saints. Weal be to all. Here ends the 15th chapter of Sri Sai Samat Satcharitra called The Story of Cholka's Vow of Sugar Candy, as inspired by the saints and virtuous and composed by his devotee Himmat Pant. Om Sai Ram.